Hi everybody and welcome. We're down here in my wormery and I've got a couple VermiBags that need to be fed. In my VermiBags I've got Nightcrawlers. These are African Nightcrawlers and those are European Nightcrawlers. And it's now 8 months since I received these Nightcrawlers while they were still not even hatched. They were still in their cocoons. So today when I feed them, most of them are celebrating their 8-month birthdays. So it's still a pretty young population. And more recently I've been seeing evidence of worms mating and worm cocoons and a lot of little baby worms. So I believe that besides that first generation that was hatched here, I've also got, I believe that I've also got the next generation following them. It's also been roughly 3 months since I got these VermiBags. So besides the worms inside them having their 8-month birthdays, we've also got kind of a 3-month check-in to see how the VermiBags are performing. And so far I can't really complain. I'm reaping the benefits of having such a well-ventilated system, because this material that these bags are made of is extremely well ventilated. And I guess that was the main selling point of these bags. I remember when I first started hearing of them was how the added air flow really helps in the biology of the bin, keep everything well ventilated, good airflow, breathing. Got a good number of worms hanging out here on the top surface. And we're already starting to get down to some of the food from previous feedings. Now the corn goes way back. The 2 corn cobs that we've got in here were added as a feeding that goes back maybe who knows how far, a couple months now. Interesting, we got some large hunks of stuff down here. Look at all this stuff. Looks like it's hardly been touched. Maybe I'll do a little excavation job here before we get to the feeding. Get a better sense of what kind of stuff is still left over. Mango plus its pit. I know we're getting to some of the bedding that's from down within the feeding zone. It does smell like some of this old food is beginning to sour a little bit. It might be necessary for me to hold off. I mean, I'm really encountering a huge amount of untouched food here. Yeah. It might be a bit premature at this point to pile in more food when you look at how much we've got here. I would almost go so far as to say, use me as an example of what not to do in your worm bins. You know, give the material in the bins a chance to really get broken down by sort of keeping pace with the capability of the worms that are in the bin. The capability is certainly there. These worms can certainly do what's been tasked of them. They can certainly make their way through all of this food. But I think the missing variable here is the head count. I believe we're just a little bit shy of the type of population that would be needed to work that material down in such a short period of time. Oops, so since we're dealing with a little bit of a glut here, it does seem like maybe I should at least lay in a little bit of extra bedding. You know, when I went through here, I was kind of trying to selectively put aside the bedding pieces that I encountered, and I would say that I did not really encounter as many as I thought that I probably should have. So I think I'm going to at least add a little bit more of the bedding material into this. before we return the old food items back into here. And I believe I'm going to just hold off on applying more food, which is a real rarity for me. I almost always add new food. You know, maybe just so I can say that this bin has been fed. Maybe I will just sprinkle in one little handful of fresh food, just to start giving that stuff a little bit of a chance to break down over time as well. We get caught up to this stuff. A lot of this stuff is already weeks down the road and doing quite nicely. So yeah, let's give them a little bit more cardboard. Here's some of the cardboard we already fished out. Okay. So now we've got good large hunks of food here. Good large hunks of cauliflower, which might benefit from just being chunked up a little bit here. Surface area, that's what we're trying to achieve there. What else do we have in these old feedings? This was a piece of watermelon rind, sort of a, I guess, classified by some as a forbidden fruit in the worm bins, citrus. So we're just feeding those sorts of foods in moderation. Another apple. Wow. I really am having second thoughts about adding that handful of additional food at this point. I just feel like I should cover this thing up and let them get caught up to my ambition. Maybe my one little ingredient that I'll add today, and I can at least cover up the smell of some of this food too, right? We don't want to have our food in our worm bin become something that's going to attract pests. So the one thing I can definitely add to this is a little bit of coffee grounds, just because the coffee grounds will do a nice job covering up the smell of the food as it breaks down. Traces of leaves are getting less and less. Luckily, the material on the outer edges is still holding its moisture level quite nicely. The African Nightcrawlers here in the VermiBag tote received a very little portion, a very tiny portion of fresh food in the form of coffee. And I guess ultimately you can consider bedding materials like this newspaper to also eventually become food as well. So in a way you can consider these guys as having been fed today. I wonder if I could be more generous with this bedding. Give them just a little bit more. So I watch other people with their worm bins, and they're always adding so much bedding material. I feel like I'm being so stingy with my bedding. So hopefully this will help a little bit. So we'll check in again in about another week and see how that big pile of food is coming along. So we'll check back in on these guys in about another week's time, and let's see how they're doing. As you may have noticed, I've got another sheet of paper in here as well. Another vapor barrier, moisture barrier, to try to keep the moisture that's within the material down in the bin. So let's see how the VermiBag Mini's coming along, the European Nightcrawlers. Okay, here we go. See how the European Nightcrawlers are coming along in their VermiBag Mini. I hope these little guys have made a little bit better progress than the last bin did. Here we can see some of them hanging out right on the surface. Feel kind of a little glob there. A little collection of worms hanging out right beneath the surface, I bet. Which is probably what I felt. Maybe combined with some of the food. Look at this thing, another huge cauliflower head. Maybe some other leftover food items. Chances are we've got kind of the same situation here too, so I think we're going to just proceed with that assumption that we're going to maybe add just coffee after we sort of rearrange the food that we find, and maybe enhance the bedding situation a little bit, both down in the feeding zone and topping off the bin. Here's the other piece of corn. Corn's starting to feel like it's getting whittled down in a way. It's hard to tell. Here's the other half of that test from the other bin. We put half of that orange in here as well. Here too, not a lot of bedding. I guess I'll try to put it aside if I see any. But I think a little bit more bedding down in here will be beneficial. What have we here? This is that mango. You could tell from the hard pit right down in the middle of it. I think this red is just a tomato that slipped down into it. Stuff does appear like it's making a little bit of progress, but I think the best bet is to do the same thing here. Is just to use this as a chance to boost the bedding a bit. Top off with coffee, and treat that as the whole feeding for the day. The main benefit today is going to be extra bedding. Just watched another person's video who did a harvest of his mammoth bag. That thing's huge, and the number of castings he got out of that thing were incredible. They were so fine and really good looking castings. But I believe he said that he'd had his bin for 8 months already or something like that. So like I said earlier, I'm at my 3-month mark with these VermiBags. And this is actually my first stab at trying these continuous flow types where you harvest from the bottom. It's part of the reason I like to dig down low, just so I can see how the material at the lowest reaches of the bin are coming along. Because I do have sort of aspirations of harvesting really nice castings once it's time to harvest this bag. But I don't want to have all kinds of scraps of cardboard and uncomposted food down there. I'd really like whatever comes out the bottom to be rich castings only. And it does look like I'm headed that way. When I get down deep, I do see some really nice castings, which have the right moisture level too, which was one of my concerns. If I felt like down at the very bottom it might be a bit dry, but it feels like the castings have a good texture to them, a good dampness. So I'm pleased to see that. Okay. Oops. It's a fair amount of bedding, but maybe that's only because I'm still gauging it with my own sense of how much bedding is the right amount of bedding. I think my senses are a little bit off. Need to be retrained. I feel like I've got to be a lot more generous with the bedding. At least that's just the sense that I get from watching other people's videos who have really great results with lots and lots of bedding in their bins. Alright, so that's kind of what we did. We added some bedding to the other bin as well, and then in went the food again with the cauliflower. We used it as a chance to try to reduce the size. So once we get everything back down into the middle area here, we're stacked up pretty high. believe it is usually best to bury your food to a certain degree, just to not have anything take a liking to it, any sort of unwanted creatures. Although that's the nice thing about these bags, is that you just zip them up, and most pests that might be attracted to a setup like this are just unable to get at it. I'm referring to like flying insects and stuff like that. So yeah, stuff is coming along really nice, beautiful. Alright, we'll just drop in whatever remains of this coffee. Which will actually count as its feeding for today. Not much, but the bedding combined with a little bit of coffee that they're receiving, I'm counting that as a feeding. It just occurred to me, it might just really be a matter of style or something, because if you've watched my channel before, I've always really liked the appearance of leaves across the top, and if not leaves, then just finished castings. So maybe it is just cosmetic that I strive towards something that just looks a little more natural. So with all this packed up white paper, it just seems so artificial. But I don't think that's the objective here, is to be conforming to some sort of an appearance. The idea is to get good results, and I believe that's most easily reached by providing the worms with just the right type of environment so they can do their thing. Alright, so that moisture level seems nice, and that's it. That's it for the VermiBags today. I'll have to clean up here a little bit and return those food scraps to the refrigerator. But I won't keep you around for that, because that's boring. I'll just use this as a chance to say thank you. Thank you for sticking along and watching my video. And by all means, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to give me a thumbs up. That's always really appreciated. And also consider subscribing to the channel. That's always really appreciated as well. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.